Let's do it. 60 seconds on the clock as we begin. So we'll go over our settings as McCaffrey goes off the board. Tyreek Hill, 2 RB, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. We do have a kicker and a defense in there for the first time on these mocks, just to see what people would do with them. Honestly, is the reason, because as people begin their home league draft, I want to see, well, how do y'all approach kicker defense? I know how I plan to. We'll see how the public does. At the number 4 position, the more I think about it, especially in this format, where it's a little more shallow. We don't need the additional wide receiver in our lineup because it's only 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. The way I am more and more approaching this position, if you're in that middle of the round, is to lock in an elite running back. Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall, you can literally flip a coin as far as I'm concerned. I guess the one benefit to Breece Hall, like when I think about, I don't like to double stack players from the same team. So there is another Atlanta player in the mid rounds that sometimes I'm angling to get. If he's there, it's Kyle Pitts. There's not really another Jet that I think I am at risk of potentially drafting other than Garrett Wilson. And I'm not going to get him here. So let's draft Breece Hall. That might be a dumb reason to pick the crux of your team, the RB1 of your roster, the first round pick, going in the top 5 overall of fantasy drafts. However, that's how I decided to do it here. You could really flip a coin between Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson as far as I am concerned. And this time I chose Breece Hall. I don't think you can really go wrong with either. If you're a little spooked by Tyler Algier, that might be a reason to consider Breece Hall. I don't think that the backup for the Jets, whether it's Braylon Allen or whoever it ends up being, is going to actually siphon away from Breece Hall. Whereas with Bijan, you may sometimes be frustrated by Tyler Algier. Other than that, I don't have a great example. I think Breece and Bijan will both be great. In a full PPR, they can both catch the passes out of the backfield. I think Breece Hall, even better in that regard than Bijan. Both have immense talent. But if the 2 running backs go off 4 and 5, I think Caden made the correct pick of Amon-Ra St. Brown. I have him slightly ahead of Jefferson, slightly ahead of Jamar Chase, who has not yet gone off the board. We saw the contract for CeeDee Lamb today. Told y'all that was coming. Chase will get his as well, but I wonder if that's part of the reason he slides a little bit here. Saquon Barkley at 1.8 seems like early, but Dead Ringer wants to go RB first. We'll see what he does in the second round. TP99 takes Garrett Wilson at the 110. That's exactly who I picked at the 110 in my draft the other night on Friday. That video has gotten over 17,000 views on this channel. Easily the most popular video of the season so far for us on this channel. So give it a look if you're interested to see what I did in my actual 12-team snake draft on Friday night. Here comes Big Lou NY at the 1-2 turn here, getting Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'll tell you what, not Amon-Ra, pardon me, AJ Brown. I just see A Brown, and that's what I was thinking on the brain there. AJ Brown is a great pick at the 12. Favorite pick at the 1.3 in a super flex with a 4-point pass TDs. That's a question coming in from Pareko. By the way, hit like on the stream and subscribe to the channel. We have more folks in the live stream than we usually have because we are a growing channel, but so much fantasy content coming your way this season. And if you've ever thought, how do people make trades in fantasy leagues? This is the channel you need to subscribe to because we will be talking about that ad nauseum throughout the season. Most channels are going to be talking about waivers, and sure, we'll do a little bit of waiver stuff as we go. More than anything, I will be telling you weekly how should you approach trades in your league. And we'll have a YouTube membership that will allow for even more access as far as that is concerned. But even the stuff that's for free over these videos will be extremely valuable, in my opinion, because trading is my favorite part of the game. Garrett Wilson, Puka Nacua is a great little stack at the 110 and the 2-3. In my league, I did not take Puka with my 2.3 pick. For those who have not seen the video, I will not reveal just yet who I took because, well, there's a chance he'll fall to me later on in the second round as I drafted the 2.9. As of now, I've got 1 name I want to pick up, 2 names I want to pick up. I'm hoping that one of the 2 gets to me. I won't use the Q because I don't want anybody sneaking a peek. But there's 2 names that I'm hoping I can land one of, and if not, oh boy, I've got a 3rd name, but I'll feel foolish to take him in the second round because there's a name. I'll tell you, it's a wide receiver. And London was one of my names I just now was thinking about, so he's off the board. I'll just talk about it a little bit here. Chris Olave went, well, he was available to me at the 3.10 in my real league, and I did not select him. And I kind of feel a pang of regret over that, knowing the way that the rest of the 3-4 turn panned out in that league. But you can't go through life having regrets. But I do have some regrets about not taking Olave or not taking the other player that I really kind of wanted to take but didn't because I thought he would get back to me at the 4-3 and he didn't. To answer Pareko's question though, and I haven't really, and I don't think I will end up doing a Superflex real league that is a snake draft. I have an auction, 14 team Superflex auction coming up. But as far as a snake, man, I'm very much in one QB mode here as I think through this draft. But a lot of people are going to be taking Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. I tend to not really. I'd probably take McCaffrey if he's there at the 1.3. I'm not one that takes running backs, quarterbacks that early in Superflex. I almost like to go zero QB. So Achane was the name that I was going to try to target here, the 2.9. Big Daddy takes him off the board. Love the Robinson Achane start. I drafted Achane all the way at 2.3 in a real league. Hand up, I did. Above ETN, above Kyron Williams, above, I believe, even above Jonathan Taylor. JT was sitting there for me, and I said thanks, but no thanks. Took Achane. Love the upside there. So the ability to start RBRB, I think, is really, really valuable the more I think about it, especially if you approach the wide receiver position appropriately. Now I feel dumb taking Olave, though, this early, because, my gosh, it feels as though if I was going to take him here, I should have taken him around later in my other league. That was an actual league, and I didn't. Let's go ahead and do something I don't normally do. We're going to take Isaiah Pacheco, a little bit of a reach, but I really want to try to employ this RBRB strategy a little bit more as I do some mocks. I did a video earlier today on the channel. It was just a mock against the computer, but I went RBRB in a 10-team league. I think it's even more valuable there. Micah takes Derrick Henry. That was the other consideration for me. In full PPR, I maybe wanted a little bit more of a pass catcher profile, but Pacheco doesn't really do a lot of that either. Henry, I think I normally would be that's the guy I want to take. And I almost am finding myself in a spot with Henry right now where I pass on him enough that it's like, do I actually even really like Henry above ADP? Because I came into mock season thinking I did, but here I am again, not taking him. But I never draft Isaiah Pacheco, and I wanted to have a chance to do it here. So we're going to go RBRB start. Achane was taken from us. The Breeze Achane start is about as good as it can get, but Big Daddy took that from me because he's a savvy drafter, apparently. I can't wait to see what Dead Ringer and what Big Daddy do at the wide receiver position. Or really at all the other positions, the onesies as well, because when you start RBRB, it can be a little bit more of a challenge. However, I also think it can be a valuable way to begin your draft because of the value that can then sink to you. So here's my thought, man. We're this deep into the third. To me, Josh Allen is the top quarterback on the board, but it feels like there should be more quarterback value because everybody's kind of in a standstill right now. How many quarterbacks will be gone before my next pick at 4-9? Over under 3.5. I don't know. If the run begins, the run begins. But for now, man, we're here in the early third. Here's the problem with it, though. All the wide receivers that I'm going to want are going to be gone. Let me take a crack at Jalen Waddle. Let's grab Waddle in the third. I think he's a nice pick in the third. I think there are going to be names that, this 1.4 is a little bit tricky. A little bit tricky. I got the running back I wanted because of the Hill Lamb going 2-3, but I think it's going to be a big old run on wide receivers here coming up. And if it's wide receivers, quarterbacks, both, and I end up not getting either of the names at the 4-9 that I was hoping to get, it could be a disappointing way to go here. But Jalen Waddle's another guy that I want to highlight. I haven't taken enough in mocks, and I really am fond of him. Caden goes with the Josh Allen pick, 3.6. I think that's a great value. I really do. There's a couple of names I'm hoping can get back to me in the fourth, but drafted behind Big Daddy, maybe that'll be tough. If you're watching live, welcome into the stream. I appreciate you guys who have been here. Check the video description for a couple of things. Mainly the Discord. That's for free, and it's a Cardinal Baseball Discord. But if you scroll down, there's a fantasy football section, and that's what's made for you. Hit like on this stream, get it up to 10 likes, and we shall see if we can do that. But also, make sure you're subscribed to the Discord if you want to join future mock drafts. We may run a mock right after this one on the live stream, thinking about Superflex. Thinking a little bit about a Superflex mock for folks who might be into that. Pareko says, let's go Blues. Josh says, those first two RB picks for me were due to my brother. Time to salvage. I think he meant salvage. Pareko wants to know the earliest I'd be fine taking Rashee Rice. Honestly, I find him a lot in the 5th round and like him there. I would take him in the 4th, but it also depends on some of the other receivers that if it's a big, heavy round 3 of receiver, and maybe we'll see this year that Rice might be my best pick at the 4-9, but probably not. Usually that feels like a little bit of a reach, but at the same time, I've got Rashee Rice ranked above receivers who have honestly already been selected, if not are about to be. Like, it's not entirely fair because you're not drafting Rice over Evans or Devontae Adams, but I don't ever have those guys on my rosters, and I usually have Rashee Rice. In my real league, I did, and got him at the 5.10. Almost thought of delaying it till the 6.3 to see if I could snag both him and T. Higgins, but the exact thing that happened that cost me Malik Neighbors in that league as dead ringer. We need you, buddy. We need you. You're on auto draft there. I don't love the auto drafter because it takes a quarterback, and that's something that we might not have seen otherwise, but that's fine. Dead ringer, you got to turn off. There we go. He turns off auto. I hate to see that. Big Lou says, hey, that's why we do these mocks. Got to be able to adjust, and that's exactly what we've got to be able to do. I am going to request folks not go on auto. I know that it's one of those things that can be unavoidable. Set your cue, set your cue, set your cue. But I was very curious to see kind of how far the quarterbacks would be delayed, and Mahomes going 3.8. A little bit frustrating for the sake of the stream because we are all trying to do some learning here, but nevertheless. TP99 takes Malik Neighbors right at the spot where I should have the other day on Friday, but I took Cooper Kupp instead. Talked a lot more about it on the video that I posted Friday night, but I was hoping to get Neighbors and Kupp, and ultimately wasn't able to do that. But look, Kupp went at 3.5 in this draft by a guy who I said had the best start of anybody, so who's to say that Kupp over Neighbors wasn't the right pick, huh? We've got Big Lou coming up at the turn here. I always like to kind of monitor teams through 2-3 rounds and see where everybody's at. Micah's got a great, interesting start. Conceivably, the wide receiver 1, the tight end 1, and Derrick Henry could be the RB1 if he scores enough touchdowns. I don't think that's crazy. Looks like the McCaffrey, Olave, Kelsey stack is hoping for the same sort of energy. We've got a 2 wide receiver and a QB, which I think is a nice spot there. Big Lou, come on, brother. There it is. He takes Ayuk. And look, A.J. Brown, Ayuk to go with Johnny Taylor. It's a good little start there. I want to see what Sky Forms ends up doing with the other wide receiver spots. Jacobs at the 311 is really interesting. One of those guys that I've kind of almost considered to be dead zoney, even though that's maybe not entirely fair. But nevertheless, I kind of don't find myself taking him a bunch. I think Jalen Hurts is a great value in the 4th. And it's one of those guys that I was even thinking about taking in my 3rd round pick. Didn't get it. The Mahomes pick is really bugging me now because maybe Hurts could have gone a little bit deeper. Who knows? But I wanted to get a look at what it would look like if I had gone Jalen Hurts early. And then it just, I thought I couldn't necessarily pass up on the value there with Waddle. I think Waddle gets slept on. I'm looking in the wide receiver range here, round 3, round 4, round 5. Some of the names that last year we saw guys that we had expectations for, like Waddle was a 2nd round pick, and he sort of disappointed for fantasy. But I think he comes into this season with another very good situation. Big Lou, I wasn't talking about Mahomes making it back to me. I just wanted to see Mahomes get drafted a little bit later because maybe then a guy like Hurts or Lamar could have made it back to me. Not saying that would have influenced anybody's decision. I wasn't looking for Mahomes though. I was looking for maybe Jalen Hurts, but it's kind of crazy to think that I wasn't even close to Hurts. Hurts is a 3rd round pick. I think that makes sense. Mahomes or Hurts, I think I'd lean Hurts with the rushing upside. I'm very curious. New offensive coordinator too in Philly. At times I kind of think, not too into Jalen Hurts. No more Jason Kelsey. Tush push will not be as effective. I do believe that. But at the same time, there's a lot of things to potentially like about the Philly situation with a new OC. Kellen Moore in town. Devontae Smith is another one of those wide receiver 2s on his own team that does not bother me. Jalen Waddle, same story. Doesn't bother me with Smith. I would have taken him here if he had not gone a pick before me. Almost certainly would have taken him here. The fact that I can't kind of puts me into a bit of a tight spot here. Because, this room is definitely sharp. And I also don't like being at the 4-9 because there's so many. Every wide receiver of the last 8 picks or so I like, and I can almost always get 2 of those guys. But in this instance, I'm unable to get 2 because I'm drafting so late in the 4th round. And so that is going to make it a little bit more difficult for me to potentially get what I want to do. Let's take T. Higgins, though. Another example of a guy who probably disappointed a little bit last year for fantasy and is a wide receiver 2 on his own team, but I think is in a great position to succeed. Trav says the tush push will still be great. I do not think it will be as great. I do not think it will be automatic this year. It was automatic last year. I think Jason Kelsey was a big part of that, and I do not believe it will be the same. Is that a reason to not draft Jalen Hurts? No, but I'm just giving you my take. I don't think it'll be the same. I can't seem to. I never know. Mirrors are hard for me. Cameras are hard for me. I'm trying to keep it centered on the page. Michael Pittman's a very good pick at the turn. Alvin Kamara. What do we think about Kamara? Let me know in the comments. In or out on Kamara this year at a 5th round draft price, 5.1. Full PPR. I'm talking only full PPR because outside of that, I don't even think he's somebody I would even consider drafting. But in full PPR, there might be a case to be made that Alvin Kamara is, it could be ugly. You might just have to not watch the games, but you might look and see 15, 17 PPR points if he goes 6 for 31 and then runs enough. All right. I made the bet, and Rashee Rice ended up coming to me in the 5th, so I'm just going to click him without even a second thought. I like him more than T. Higgins. In real draft, 5.10 on Friday, I drafted Rice, hoping Higgins could make it to 6.3. He did not, but I wasn't mad about the decision. Like I had said, after the 3-4 turn, when I wanted to get Kupp and Neighbors, and I drafted them in the wrong order because I don't think my league mates were taking Cooper Kupp, I was a little bit flustered by that and said, look, I want Rice a little more than I want Higgins, so I'm going to not try to play the ADP game, have Rice stolen from me too. Let's go ahead and take Rice first. But in this, I decided to be a little bit more risky because I'm not as strong at wide receiver. Now, I do have 2 Chiefs. Something I haven't had to think about previously is having a second Chief because I've never drafted Pacheco. So kind of maybe even a little bit more so wishing I had gone the Derrick Henry route, but that's okay. I still feel like we're in a really good spot. And again, if there's an offense that you want to have too much of, it's probably the Chiefs, right? Waddle, Higgins, Rice. Look, there will be stronger wide receiver rooms without a doubt. But to go Brees Hall, Pacheco, or you could have gone, again, think about it in terms of who you like. Could have gone Brees Hall, Henry, and then clear tier break at RB. You'll see 8 picks off the board before the James Cook pick, which feels like he's just in no man's land. James Cook, to me, good 4th round pick, not a good 3rd round pick. But in the spot where Doyle was, he had 2 elite receivers and was in the spot of the draft. He had to get an RB because with Jacobs and White going thereafter, did he want to have Ken Walker, Mixon, or Kamara as his RB1? He didn't. And he also was able to get Trey McBride. My pride and joy of my Friday draft was Trey McBride at pick 6.3, where I believe we still had, was Jalen Hurts still available? I believe he was in that draft. I drafted McBride where I could have had Hurts at 6.3. And the reason I went McBride was because he was the last of that group of tight ends. Kittle, Kincaid, Andrews had all been taken. Pitts had been taken. And I was thinking Trey McBride is the last of not only a tier, but the tier of that top, I call it top 6, 7 tight ends. Ingram, if you wanted to put into that tier, you could. I personally do not. That's fine if you do. There's all the reason in the world that you would. Look at his numbers last year. He was great. Target hog, all of that. I just am not into Ingram in the same way. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button on the channel. We have a lot of viewers in here that are new. So appreciate you guys for giving me a chance. I'm on Twitter at bschaefer12 as well. Throw me direct messages, any questions you have. Subscribe, join into the Discord. It's for free as well. And I aim to please. I'm here to serve. I don't know necessarily any more than y'all do about fantasy, but I think over the years I have perfected my process. I have a process each and every time I go into a draft or a trade, and that's something that gives me success. And I also like talking about it with other people. But my main thought about this, if you're someone new to the channel, new to watching my videos, is fantasy football is for everybody. It doesn't matter if you're in a league that's not full of hardcores. It's okay. Yes, you should be able to exploit that league if there's a lot more novice or newer players. That's all the more reason to make sure you know your stuff. But that being said, the one thing that's beautiful about fantasy is we don't actually know. You could look at a pick and say, oh, that's a terrible pick. But you actually don't know that. You might be looking at last year's numbers and say that's terrible. But if you're only ever going to look at last year's numbers, guess what you're going to miss out on? This year's rookies. Maybe this year it's a completely different story. Maybe somebody was an objectively bad pick. You reached on somebody, but if that was your guy and he ends up having the type of season you thought he would, well, guess what? You get to victory lap that into oblivion. It's okay to not have the perfect draft as long as you leave it going, I got my guys. And that's really that's really the only criteria that I see. Don't leave your draft going, oh man, I drafted so and so because a list told me I should, rather than, hey, this is who I wanted. This is the way I wanted my draft to look. Be confident, man. That's the biggest thing I can say about fantasy football. LBJ wants to know my preferred quarterback strategy. And the reason I said I wanted to take Jalen Hurts but didn't do it was because I almost never do take an early quarterback. I feel like the run on QBs in this draft has been such that I'm going to wait. Because even though it started late with Josh Allen at 3.6, a lot of times you see somebody in your league reach on a QB in the second round. But once that run came, man, it really did. And we've seen now, what's it been? 6 quarterbacks off the board. A lot of them have rushing upside. MVP Lamar Jackson, Anthony Richardson, Hurts. We know Stroud doesn't, but he also could win the MVP this year on the strength of his arm sort of upside. So all that being said, these guys are all fine quarterback picks, but who am I giving up to pick them? I'm giving up a Waddle, or I'm giving up a Higgins, or a Rashee Rice, or in drafts where I'm a little bit closer to the other end of the turn, I'm giving up a Neighbors. I'm giving up DJ Moore, Tank Dell. I'm giving up some really, really Cooper Kupp, high quality names at the receiver position. And, well, I don't like to do that. So my preferred strategy is to wait because there are 2 rookies at the end of every draft that I think are pretty good for fantasy. Come on, Sky. What are we doing here? Mari Cooper. Try to go off auto draft there, Sky. I'm looking at Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. If I strike out on everybody else at the quarterback spot, then I'm perfectly happy to take those players. The thing I did at 7.10 in my draft when I believe Anthony Richardson was still available in my draft, my league just waited on QB. Waited, and I was happy to roll with what my league did on Friday night. Again, that video, it's got 17,000 views on the channel. That is the one that if you want to see a real home league, you got some experienced players. You got some players who are very enthusiastic about it, but maybe not quite as experienced. And it's just kind of a nice little mixed bag. That was a real money league that I'm in, and yeah, you saw some things you don't always see in your drafts, but that's the fun of a home league. But I ended up in that taking Kyler Murray over Anthony Richardson at the 7.10. The reason being for that is I had Trey McBride in the 6th, and I wanted the stack. It's another question I would pose to the comment section here on the live chat, and all you got to do to jump into the live chat is subscribe to the channel, which is free. I was kind of caught like, okay, I have Kyler dropped to 7.10, which in a vacuum is great value, but I passed on Hurts in the 6th to draft McBride. I might as well go all in and make sure I'm getting the stack. Anthony Richardson, I think, is a better pick at that spot in a vacuum, but I wanted the stack, and I feel like that could really supercharge my roster. So would you do that? If you had a quarterback ranked a little bit higher, both guys were falling into a range that you felt like were great picks, but you draft a lower ranked guy by a little bit to make sure you get your stack with your premium tight end. That's what I ended up doing. Going to move this all for a second to highlight a couple of teams. I think Big Daddy is having a great start to this draft, and I want to see what he does here. I'm sure it will be a wide receiver. I like what TP99 has done because Garrett Wilson, Nakua, Neighbors, and Odunze is a slam dunk 4-pack. I hate Rashad White, but that's not, I mean, you got to draft a running back at some point. I would have taken Ken Walker, honestly, at that spot, and I would have even loved TP's draft more if he had. Anthony Richardson's a fine pick late in the 5th, so I really like what that team's doing. I'm not a believer in Rashad White, just not efficient, and I don't think he's that good at football. Wasn't that good last year, but was for fantasy, so can't argue with that. I'm more team Bucky Irving to take over some snap share on that team. Okay, let's take a look at where we're at. Remember, we drafted the 2 early running backs. A lot of times I haven't been doing that on mocks, but I really wanted to force myself into it here, especially think about this. We go wide receiver, flex, only 1 flex. It's a little bit different than a lot of the mocks we've been doing. Therefore, I don't need a wide receiver here, but I would like one to put on my bench, especially when you have Rashee Rice. There is a little bit of a question about his potential to be suspended, everything like that. Could we go with another wide receiver that I think is extremely undervalued at Christian Kirk in the late 6th? Jaden Reed or Christian Kirk are the two receivers I'd be taking. Take a quick peek at tight end. Everybody, team 1 through 3, has one, though. So let's go ahead and lock in Christian Kirk. We will go ahead and grab that first bench receiver. And Kirk could even be a wide receiver to himself. But I think the solidify, that's not even a word. I don't even know what I was trying to say. Solidification? That's not it. I've solidified a wide receiver core that I feel good about. Let's put it that way. No quarterbacks have been taken by the first 3 teams, so I could potentially risk kind of missing out on all the targets. But like I said, if that happens, I'm probably going to be satisfied to go ahead and simply wait for a late round pick. Kyler would have been my quarterback pick if he had made it back to me, but that's okay. Xavier Worthy is somebody that I really like and almost would have picked in the 6th round there, but I have Rashee Rice. I have 2 Chiefs already. I just feel like I had to wait. It was interesting to see Roma Dunze pushed up. I mean, TP99, obviously, drafting aggressively. I don't mind that one bit, but just kind of interesting to see as we go along here. There's another wide receiver or 2 that I am perfectly thrilled to receive. And there's also a tight end that I tend to draft a decent bit of. It's a guy that probably won't drop all the way back to me because between team 9, 10, 11, they're going to draft him. But we'll see if those 3 all draft tight ends or if any of my potential targets there make it back to me. I'm probably not taking a tight end here because the wide receiver value is still too good. And what can afford me the right to take wide receivers with impunity at this point in the draft is the fact that I've already got my running backs filled. Micah, don't do it to me. Our 3rd auto draft. It's painful. It's painful. Why do we keep doing this, guys? We got to be better than this. But it doesn't matter. I'm taking Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think he's a great pick. If you can get him later, great. But I don't think he would have made it to the 8th round, to be honest with you. So I'm taking him. I usually go for a 6-pack of stud wideouts. I've got 5. Waddle, Higgins, Rice, Christian Kirk, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. I feel really, really good about that group. There's a couple more wide receivers that I like that I can still see here. Really like 3 or 4 that I'd be thrilled to actually 5 that I'd be thrilled to get on the way back in the 8th round. We'll see if any of them make it to me. I miss out on Tony Pollard. I like Tony Pollard in the 7th the more I think about it. But I'd have to have a build. Like, what build would I need to really, actually pull the trigger on that? Because I'm usually still – the 7th is the round where the wide receivers that I would love to think when you listen to podcasts and stuff, they'll say, oh, they're in the 8th. They're a steal. They actually aren't going in the 8th. When Roma Dunze is up in the early 6th and Christian Kirk is the late 6th, I kind of did that, though. And Worthy's the early 7th and JSN, you're not going to get a lot of those guys in the 8th. You got to get him in the 7th if you want to get him at all, and I want to get him. So it makes it tougher to draft a Tony Pollard here. It would have to almost be a 0 RB build like Caden has put together. And I actually think it's a pretty good 0 RB situation because in as much as James Conner, I could take or leave James Conner. I kind of tend to leave him. I was higher on Trey Benson earlier in mock season, and now I'm not as sure on Trey Benson. Hasn't looked great in the training camp in the preseason. So maybe Conner is just able to kind of do it for one more year. As I realize I need to kind of move my stuff out of the way a little bit here. I might just close it back out so y'all can see the whole board. But I'm rising on Tony Pollard. I just would have to have the right draft situation to get him. And I feel like Caden has done that. Amon-Ra and Adams with Metcalf, okay, early wide receiver heavy build. If you are going to go 0 RB in 2024, it's not my favorite way to go it. I prefer hero RB probably to anything, but I've been trying more double RB starts just to test it out as we're seeing in this draft here. And I will go ahead and move my camera so everybody can see the full board. I think if you're going to go 0 RB, though, it's not like a death knell, but you have to make sure to get elite tight end, elite quarterback. Caden did, talking about Team 6 with Josh Allen there in the 3rd. Kittle is not really a pick I like quite as much. I think Caden's team and the attempt at 0 RB here would be a slam dunk if he had gone Kyle Pitts instead of Kittle. But Kittle could easily outproduce Pitts. I could just be wrong there. My problem with Pitts is sometimes he'll go for games at a time where San Francisco has him blocking too much. I don't know if that'll still be the case this year, but it seems like it's been a problem in past years. Bowers is a guy I really like, but I don't honestly know if he's enough of a guarantee as close to the previous tier of tight ends to still be drafting him in the 7th. Like if he's in the 8th, I'd prefer it even better. But I have taken him a lot in mocks, so it is one of those moves that at the back of the 7th I can't really knock. Another guy that's in the dead zone for running backs that I actually don't mind as much as Aaron Jones when he's going in the back of the 5th or the early 6th, and Montgomery's the same way. So these are a couple of 5th-round picks at running back that I like. And I think the dead zone guys like Connor Ramondre is a dead zone guy. They're getting pushed down a little bit more to where at least it's not costing you as much. Ferguson was the other tight end. We see him go here at 8.2. He was the other tight end that I would have been giving some real consideration to. So as a result of that, put myself back in the middle here. As a result of that, we might just be punting tight end. I hate to do it. I think you really want to get one of the top 6 or so tight ends. And if you don't, you'd really want to get one of the top 7 or 9 tight ends. Like Ingram, Bowers, and Ferguson is that next tier for me. After that, I don't have any interest in Njoku. Maybe Dalton Schultz could be interesting, but I don't want to spend an 8th or 9th round pick on that guy when I could be getting some really interesting stuff for other spots on my roster. So that's what's a little bit frustrating. Raheem Mostert feels like a guy who normally had been going in the 7th. He's getting pushed down. There is a realm in which Mostert gets down low enough that I'm actually just happy to scoop him up. He's kind of like discount David Montgomery in some ways in a rushing scheme that's even better in Miami than it is in Detroit. And Detroit has a good rushing scheme and a really good offensive line, but like we're starting to see the sharp. This is maybe the sharpest draft room I've had here on these mocks, and I might even title the video that way. Even though the last one I said we had a few sharp mock drafters, that video did really well. This is probably the sharpest that we've had, which is great because your leagues aren't going to be this good. I'm just being honest with you. Every league you're in is not likely to be as good as the room you're in right now. And the reason I can tell that is just a lot of really savvy picks. So I don't know. Maybe I'm tooting our own horns. I'm not even giving myself the credit in that, but it's a lot of y'all that have been really solid. Let's see here. But yeah, I mean, Mostert dropping down then becomes a value. Zamir White, I don't know if he ever could become a value. I'll be very curious to see where Chubb goes with the news that he's likely to start on the pup. I think that might even be official. But yeah, this is so interesting because there are even guys like Javonte. Like, I would love to do a draft where I go 0 RB and land and feel like I'm strong enough in my roster the first few rounds. And it would have to be one of these types of drafts where it's 2 wide receiver, 1 flex instead of 2 flex, because I could go 3 wide, a tight end, a quarterback. That would be 5 rounds. And then probably a wide receiver as well to make 1 go on the bench. So 4 wide, a tight end, a quarterback, and then find a way to land Pollard and Javonte in the mid rounds, or like a Pollard Mostert as Caden has done. And so maybe the only switch I would have done from Caden's draft, other than maybe Pitts above Kittle, would be instead of Connor, I would have probably gone Christian Kirk or Worthy to find myself that 4th wide receiver. But in this particular league, you don't need to because there aren't 4 wide receivers available to you to start. You can only start 3 because it's a flex instead of 2 flex. Big Daddy, he's coming up on the clock. Big Daddy takes J-Mo at the 8-8. Good pick. I like Jameson Williams. And he probably would have been a mega smash for me if he was still sitting here. He's not. But I've also got 5 wide receivers. So I don't need to do it, not in a league that only starts 3. But I've got everything I need as far as running backs. So let's look at quarterback. See, the problem now is we've waited too long. We've waited too long for both quarterback and tight end. And that's going to mean that I'm not going to like this draft as much as a lot of the other ones I've done. Just plain and simple. Team 1 still needs a quarterback, but there's still plenty of them left. I'll probably take Addison here and complete my 6-pack of wide receivers that I love. I absolutely could take a running back here, and it would be Javonte Williams. Javonte or Addison? What's better for the makeup of my team? Here's why I'm going to take Javonte and maybe regret it. The later rounds are going to have to be used for, instead of running backs, I'm going to have to grab some tight ends, grab some quarterbacks. And I don't like that about myself because I normally don't like to, but I also wanted to have a piece of Javonte somewhere. This isn't a real league, so I'm acting like it's a real share. It's not. But I think I'm rising on Javonte Williams back to about where I was in May or June when I was like, oh man, Javonte. I traded Jonathan Taylor for Javonte Williams and 2 first-round picks in Dynasty is basically what the equivalent was. And it's a little bit different than like straight dynasty because we only keep 12, but effectively that's what I was doing. And like Jonathan Brooks would have been another guy. I almost kind of lost him on the list. Where was he listed? Show rookies because he'll pop up. Yeah, 97th is where Brooks was listed on the rank, so a little bit lower. I don't know. He probably would have actually been really savvy for me to take instead of Javonte, but that's okay. You live and learn. Javonte's not a terrible pick. Although Trez thinks it is. Imagine drafting Broncos. Do yourself a favor. Broncos, Patriots, Steelers, or Giants. Thank me later. Trez, I think you're wrong, brother, because Malik Neighbors is a Giant, and if you're just ignoring him, I think you've messed up. I think you've missed the boat on something, personally. Trez is. He says he's picked 9. I don't know if that's true, but either way, no, man. Listen, if it's just going to be a bunch of talking about bad picks, I eventually just mute those people. Be honest with you, I don't have time for that on the channel. So positivity is all we're gonna do. So if you want to be a hater, you can hate. You can hate right into the void because nobody will see your comments. But that's fine. So Jordan Addison makes it back to me in the 9th, which I feel really good about. I can complete that 6-pack of wide receivers that I alluded to. The only thing is going to be, how's everybody looking at QB? Big Daddy needs one, and he's the only other drafter that needs one. So I'm gonna have faith that quarterback is gonna come back to me. Sharp enough draft room that I don't think people are gonna start firing on backups. So I should be okay. So we'll take Addison, who I don't think is getting suspended, and he's my 6th receiver. So even if he is, not a lot of risk associated there. We'll move myself off now so you can look at the full draft board for the next round or so until my next pick comes up. And I'll dive back into the live chat, reading some other comments. CMC or CD as a keeper this year, Pareko. It depends on if there's anything draft pick associated with it, but if it's all equal, CMC would be my preference. I love CD Lamb, but I think CMC is a better pick. If you can just have the best running back in football, and it's not like he's just the best. He historically has been, 15, 20, 25% better than the second best running back. That's unbelievable. CD Lamb could be wide receiver 1. He's not going to be better than wide receiver 2 by 15% or 20%. It's very unlikely. Chris Crypto said he just subscribed. Your draft is matching mine so far, other than taking Debo or Derrick Henry second. Yeah, I really almost did it too. Pacheco, I just wanted to feel what it felt like to draft him because I probably never will in a real draft. I think I do prefer Henry. Make sure you guys hit like on this stream. We got 125 viewers, but just the 15 likes. If we could get the likes up, man, that would be great. Alvaro said I picked up Eckler just in case he breaks out. In case Eckler breaks out? I think we've seen Eckler's breakout. It was like about a decade ago. But I do like Eckler in PPR just fine. But I also think Brian Robinson. He was my RB2 in that real draft on Friday, round 10. We see Doyle take him in round 9 here. I think that's fine. I don't like the Ramondre pick from Doyle, but I like the Brian Robinson pick. It's almost his second best RB, in my opinion. And look, keep in mind, I could be wrong. I'm wrong about a lot. We don't know it all, even if we think we do. Ibrahim wants to know, in a 12-team non-PPR, who do you draft at number 8? CMC, Breeze, Bijan, CD, Hill, Taylor, and Barkley are gone. Amon-Ra St. Brown is who I would draft. Ibrahim in that spot. Because if you're not getting rewarded for PPR and all those running backs are gone, I'm just taking the best player available, and to me, that's Amon-Ra. If you feel compelled to have an RB, because a lot of RBs seem to be going early in that league, I would be going Gibbs. But also understand if that's not your cup of tea. Looks like D-Wire is going to auto. It happens. Would prefer us not have that, but it's okay. Yeah, come on. Dobbs is a fine pick, though, in the 9th round. Taking a look at my roster, I've got my 6-pack of receivers. I've got 3 running backs, so I really can afford to focus only on quarterback, tight end in the next couple of rounds. The shame of it all is I just waited a little bit too long. Everybody else in the league is going to probably have those positions filled. The thing I like, though, about having a wide receiver 6 better than anybody else's wide receiver 6 is the fact that trades are going to be very, very possible for me. And as I said, that is the main thing that I am going to focus on for in-season content on this channel. So if you've ever wanted to know how do people make trades, what can I do to put myself in a position to make them? Well, first of all, draft more receivers than running backs. That would be my first piece of advice. But secondly, subscribe to this channel. It's free to sub, and I will be doing a lot of trade videos, and it's simpler than you think, but it's all about knowing what your opponents and your league mates actually need in conjunction with what you're trying to accomplish. And be the bridge to finding that out for your league mates. It's really possible to do it. James says, like, really been digging the videos the past few days. Question, why don't you think Superflex is more popular? I like Superflex. I'm in a 14-team auction Superflex that is so fun. It's just, I think it's just hard to get people, more casual fantasy players, to incorporate changes and things that are different. I like Superflex quite a bit. I like it for auction, though. I honestly don't like Snake Draft Superflex because it almost seems unfair. You could be at the turn instead of, especially in deeper leagues, you could be at the turn instead of toward the beginning, and you just don't get to have Josh Allen, or you cannot have Mahomes. Auction to me is the great equalizer when it comes to the Superflex format. So that is a strong, strong preference for me when it comes to Superflex, but I enjoy the heck out of the format. And I'm in a ton of dynasties that are that way, but for redraft, man, for me, it's auction, and that's the way to make it the most equitable. We see some running backs flying off the board. That doesn't really bother us because we know our situation, but we're going to probably end up missing out on some of the rookie upside RBs, which makes us sad. Alvaro says, which rookie RBs do you think will have a good year as a last pick? Any of them. I'm happy to have almost any of the big names, which to me are like Ray Davis, and I hate to say it now because I'll probably get none of them here, but Ray Davis, Braylon Allen, Bucky Irving are all guys I'm interested in. Jalen Wright, I'm interested in. That's the way I want to normally be filling out the late rounds of a draft, typically, depending on what I've gotten beforehand. This time I'll have to do it differently because of the fact that I didn't draft a quarterback or a tight end early, but that's not typical. So what do we learn? It's maybe a little bit tougher sometimes to go RB late when the room is like legitimately ready to go as this one. Wide receivers got pushed up the board compared to I think your standard home league, and as a result, my receiver room is still great. I love it. It's just not quite as high impact as it would have been, or like my room on Friday. I can even try and find the draft while we're waiting here for my next pick. I'm still a couple of picks away. And I felt like the draft I did on Friday, man, I love my receivers. So I've got Garrett Wilson, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Smith, Rashee Rice, Brian Thomas, and Lad McConkey in that league. It's my 6-pack, and that's a four flex, or I should say 4 wide receiver, 2 flex, 2 wide. Big Daddy takes Jaden Daniels. That means just in case someone wants to screw me, I can't let them. I have to take Caleb Williams. And Big Daddy was the last to take a QB. So drafting next to Big Daddy has made my life difficult because he does a lot of the same stuff I do. We started with the same RB build. He went heavy on wideouts. He hit a tight end when I wasn't able to because I prioritized receiver a little bit more. And I don't like his third pick of Keenan Allen. I think that could be a rough pick, which gives me an advantage because my receivers are definitely superior. But I would start J-Mo in a flex if I had to. And the other part of it is, Brenden, remember the format. You don't need 6 wide receivers when you can only start 3. So I will be actively looking to package a wide receiver with my quarterback or with my tight end if my tight end is decent enough to try and get a little bit of an upgrade there. Because I think a little bit, I went through the motions of being used to drafting those double flex leagues, and this isn't one. So in a non-double flex, learn from my mistake. You've got to be able to come away with quarterback and or tight end a little bit sooner than I did. However, I have no problem with Caleb Williams. I would draft him over Jordan Love. I would draft him over Burrow. I would draft him, it depends on the format, probably over Dak, although Dak is going to throw a lot of touchdowns. In 6-point touchdowns, 6-point pass TDs, I would be taking Dak over Caleb for sure. But in 4-point, I might consider Caleb because Caleb could run a little bit. Jaden Daniels, I think I like over Caleb, but obviously Big Daddy, like I said, he's making my life hell. I like my receivers better, but that may not matter in this league. It only matters for trade value because that's going to be my in. That's got to be my avenue. LBJ wants to know if I'm into Marvin Harrison in London at cost. Yes, London, and yet I found myself not drafting him because there's always just like one guy that I want a little bit more. But I always have everybody who picks London in the middle of the second. I'm like, yeah, great pick. But I'm usually drafting Achane here, so that's why I just have him a little bit more of a of a need, not because I have him ranked higher, but because I think it's harder to come by running back if you don't like if I've gone wide receiver round one and then I need one in round two. It usually is reliable for HN to be sitting there for me in the second. And if I go 0 RB, that's a completely different build that I'm willing to do, but haven't done it as often. All right, stop looking at wide receivers because you have enough of them. Njoku, after I poo-pooed him, is still here, available in the 11th. Man, I really don't need to do it, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a rookie running back. Dowdle is a great pick if I needed a starter this late. If I needed a week one starter, he'd be a great pick. As it stands, though, I'm happy to just grab Ray Davis so I can have one of those rookie running backs. I'm totally punting tight end. And that's not going to look as sexy compared to a lot of these teams that have good top 8 tight ends, good top 6 or 8 quarterbacks. I trust Caleb Williams to be able to he's bridging that gap. So I feel comfortable. I can't speak. I feel confident and comfortable with having Caleb Williams. The tight end's going to be an issue, though. Get an early tight end, man. Don't let that Kyle Pitts cutoff get you. Get one before Pitts. Get one at the Pitts or above. Which in my real league, I got McBride. That's why I can't complain. But in this one, wide receivers it was really coming from right here. This 3-4 turn it started right after my Waddle pick. And I was thinking, as long as one of Kupp, Neighbors, Ayuk, Moore, Metcalf, Smith make it back to me, I'll be pretty happy. And it's like, all right, I'm taking Higgins, who I would have hoped to maybe get in the 5th, but I'm getting Rice, who I would have had to consider in the 4th. So it's okay. That Higgins Rice turn helps, but it just felt like I'm on the wrong side of the board to take the receivers that I really like, just my it guys, right? I'm getting good value, but I'm not as elated about the receivers. But I can recognize that the room is stout. I just think I could have stopped after. I could have changed it up a little bit. Like if I go Kyler over Kirk and everything else is the same, I'm still getting a really good room. It's a 5 deep instead of a 6 deep, but I can only start 3, so that would have been fine. And then maybe here maybe I take Ray Davis around earlier, or I take Jalen Wright, so I have another one of the running backs. I would have taken Jamison Williams over Javonte Williams, but that wasn't an option afforded to me. So that's what is going to happen when you're drafting in a tough room. And Big Daddy is having a really good draft. He's been sharp. He's been on everything I've been on. Maybe that doesn't mean he's sharp. Maybe that means he's dumb like me, but I like his draft. It sucks too. Like when you look at, obviously we trade off where I get to go before him and then vice versa. But the picks where he went before me, it was always a snipe. Achane over Pacheco, Smith over Higgins. This time it didn't happen that way. Keenan, I would have taken Kirk over Keenan. But Javonte or Jameson over Javonte and Jaden over Caleb. The 5 times he's gone before me by a pick, 4 of the 5 times I've been sniped by him and I picked somebody of the same position, which is probably why I don't feel as good about this draft, because I still leaned into the same strategy. I'm just doing it a little bit less effectively at almost every turn. The only time I got the better of him was Kirk over Allen. If he had gone Kirk here, I probably would have just drafted like Reed or would have talked myself into Worthy. Maybe Godwin would have been the pick. But at the inverse, when I've gone ahead of him, well, he's gone Bijan because Burris and Bijan, same difference. Waddle and Kupp, he's drafted a guy that I like just as much as the guy I took. Rice, he said, okay, I'll pivot. I'll get a tight end. I'll get better than Brenden in that way. JSN, he pivoted, took running back. Addison, he pivoted from what I did, took Singletary. Ray Davis over Algier, I'd say I got him, but I didn't because he wanted Algier to handcuff his Bijan. Big Daddy is my nemesis, man. My nemesis. Allison, yeah, I'm sorry I did not post this to Twitter tonight. I didn't want to make the Cardinals fans mad, but I live stream over the Cardinals tonight was not going to be it. They're fading a little bit, folks. Fading a little bit. But yeah, fascinating to see that how one person drafting to the wrong side of me has really shifted the way my entire draft has played out. Kind of interesting. Appreciate you guys that are watching. Make sure you hit like on that stream and do subscribe to the channel if you're new. Lots more content to come. I'm up in 4 picks. I still need a tight end. So I'll go ahead and star a couple guys like Dalton Schultz. I'll take. Do I have any other Philly guys? No. I mean, Goddard I would take. I don't want to particularly. I do think I could take Hawkinson. That might be interesting because then at least I have a good one for the playoffs. And I did draft Hawkinson as a backup tight end in my real league. So that's somebody I'm looking at. I'll take the other guy that I start as well. Hawkinson, of course, goes right after I say that. That's fine. Obviously, when I'm streaming, it's going to be a different situation than when I'm just drafting myself. I have to realize that. I've got 2 guys that I'm looking at. I refuse to even name the other one because I don't want to give anybody ideas here. But if it's Big Daddy, Lord knows he's probably already got the idea. If he takes Dalton Schultz, well, so be it. He takes Johnston, so I am going to get away with one on him. Not that he was even carrying, but I'm just going to go right back to the well with Bucky Irving. And look, you might go, wow, your bench is getting really long there. That's more than you can have. Yeah, it is. We've got 2 rounds left. And it's supposed to be kicker and defense last 2 rounds. You'll notice I'm not going to be taking either. But that will leave me some work to do because I don't have any injured players. If I would have gotten Hawkinson, or that's another thing that makes Jonathan Brooks such a good pick instead of Javonte, because I would be able to do this maneuver without having to drop anybody. Because right now, I'm going to need a tight end. I can't pick another guy on my bench, and I don't want to drop Bucky Irving. So honestly, you'll catch me in a position to have to trade before week 1 in this league. It wouldn't have been the case if I could have lined up some injuries a little bit better. I was just on the wrong side of the draft board. Early 12th, Hawkinson would have been mine. And I should have taken Brooks over Javonte when it comes to the plan of trying to stash injuries so that I can then pick up kicker and defense later. But that's okay. We live and learn from that. We will take a tight end. Dalton Schultz is who we'll probably take unless he's gone. And yes, I'll have to try to make some trades. It's more possible than you'd think sometimes, so. But like I said, it will be a little bit tough. This league would have been frustrating to try and go with. Yeah, Nick Chubb, is he still out there? It doesn't really help me anymore. Where did Chubb go? He's been drafted, I assume. I can't see how long ago he was taken. Well, he's definitely been taken. At any rate, I just need to grab tight end. Let's go ahead and get Dalton Schultz. Somebody commented Taysom Hill and hope for that upside. Yes, that is what I would a lot of times do, but Schultz did get picked, so I'll happily start with C.J. Stroud's tight end. But Hawkinson would have been really nice in this 12.9. Just couldn't quite make that happen. The reason for that, though, is, again, to reiterate, I would be looking to IR somebody, if your league has IR spots, and mine always do, and then pick up a kicker. IR somebody, pick up a defense. You don't need to draft them on August 26th. This would be a great spot to take a late round flyer on Marshawn Lloyd, on Tyrone Tracy, on Khalil Herbert, on Will Shipley, Tank Bigsby. You never know. And look, I could honestly just use the pick on a Keaton Mitchell. I don't know that he's imminently returning for Baltimore. He's on the pup list a month ago. But pick up an injured guy, and at least then you can stash him, and you can pick up your kicker or defense that way. Every time Tyson Williams is starred, I unstar him, and he goes back to being starred. I don't know why he is starred on my sleeper. Cannot figure that one out. Taking a look at some of the other comments here. Don't see a lot, and that's okay. I think we've gotten to most of them. Long wait, but he's going to go Antonio Gibson there with his last pick. This draft I feel okay about. I feel like it's gone fine. The tight end thing is going to bother me. and the fact that I will have to be working the phones to make trades is going to bother me. Folks that I think won this draft, Big Daddy, very close to doing it. I didn't like the way he stuck the landing at wide receiver, but I think with Cup Smith and you have options at flex. I mean, Najee could be his flex. I think he's done very well for himself. Love the way he snagged a late quarterback right before me. So that's a winner in my book. I think Caden pulled off a pretty good zero RB draft. Even a Jaleel McLaughlin late is a guy that he's able to throw into his lineup in a pinch if he should ever need to. So I feel like that one goes pretty well. A lot of solid picks there. Yeah, I don't even know what I would be. You're just looking to pick a backup running back because if the starter gets hurt between now and September 8th, if Aaron Jones should get hurt and Marshawn Lloyd elevates, then I've got him. If not, I can drop him, pick up my kicker or defense. That's the reason you don't see me draft one. Not a lot of folks chose to employ that strategy here. That's okay. It's definitely one that I like. I feel pretty good, though, about the wide receivers. I feel pretty good about my trade assets. And obviously at running back, Brees Hall, Pacheco, and Javonte is a pretty good start. We have a lot of rookies to stash our bench with. I'll give myself even like a C plus on this one. I felt like things went well, rounds 1 through 7, but inevitably we end up missing out on some things that we could have otherwise had because of how hard we hit wide receiver. And because of the format, I didn't need to do it to that extent. 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. That's all you can start. Make sure you're stronger at the other positions if it's a shallow league like that. I like TP99's team. I didn't like the Rashad White pick, but man, Deontay Johnson, 710. Hollywood Brown's going to be injured to begin the season, so he'll be able to pick up kicker defense with Hollywood on IR. Spears, Corum, Vidal, Braylon Allen, and Roshan are great running back picks at the end. He did have to punt tight end like I did, but and that's weird. As I was thinking about tight end, I didn't even realize that TP didn't have one. But that's a team that I think is a solid B plus. I just don't love the Rashad White pick. Everything else I think has been pretty solid there. Definitely some good teams. I think Caden, like I said, did a nice job. It's a solid B for me. I like the Jalen Polk pick too. We forget about those Patriots, but if Drake May ends up playing, I think it could be better than people think. Kevin said, I always scour the remaining players for overlook value, occasionally land someone good just by doing that. Yep. That can definitely be a strategy that you can employ in your leagues. McCaffrey, Kamara in full PPR to go with Olave, Pittman, Reed with Worthy coming off the bench, drafting Travis Kelce. Love, he'll be solid. Was able to stack it with Jaden Reed, so that's fun too. The Brooks pick is great. Buys you some flexibility for the roster late. And I think Leggett Downs is good at the end. I like what Trev did. That's probably a B plus draft for me. TP, Trev, Big Daddy, some of the biggest winners I felt like in this draft. I like Doyle's draft as well. Like some of the moves he made. McBride and Hawkinson is exactly what I had in one of my leagues recently too. Tampa RB, the weakest in the division in football, not too bad. Tampa RB in the weakest division in football, not too bad, says Peter. Yeah, I don't know if he's gonna dominate the touches. Like Bucky Irving was drafted. I think he's a good, solid bet to eat into some of the workload. And I just do not believe that Tampa RB Rashad White is very good. So I tend to not draft him. But you're welcome to do it if you would like to. Well, let me know. I mean, we could go with another mock draft here, probably for the better if we just shut things down, though. But hey, check out the video description where there will be a link. I can even post the Discord link here real quick before we get out of here. If anybody wants to join the Discord to know, hey, where's the link the next time we're doing a mock draft live stream or a group of folks I could mock draft with in general to try and sharpen up my skills before my real draft happens, I will post I'm going to post it right here in the live chat, actually, so that you guys who would like to join the Discord can do so for free. And there we go. That link has now been posted in the live chat. Make sure you guys subscribe before we get out of here. I think we'll go ahead and call it for now, but there will be more to come. Peter, yeah, hop on in that link on the Discord. Appreciate the number of folks who have jumped in. Make sure to hit like on the video before you leave. And we'll repost all of this in video form on tomorrow's on YouTube tomorrow, just so everybody has a chance to rewatch. Sometimes the live streams don't show up for everybody. And that will do it, though. I'm going to go ahead and leave this up for a moment so people can see the draft board as I take my video off of screen. I wonder if there's a way to make it even smaller so everybody can see what we're looking at here. See as much of the screen as possible if that works. Gets a little bit small, but you can pause your video, read the names. That is the full draft board. Had a lot of fun tonight. We'll be doing more of these, I think, over the days to come. Not sure about Tuesday, but maybe very, very late at night on Tuesday. You never know. But that'll do it for this stream. Appreciate you guys. And subscribe before you get out of here. We'll talk to you next time on the channel.